Did you know today is LeBron James' 40th birthday, and I figure that makes it the perfect time to do something I've wanted to do for a while. And that is a 6-part series going over the moves and roster constructions in LeBron James' career. I wanted to start things off talking about the coaches in LeBron's career. Now, I don't intend for these videos to be a pro or anti-LeBron is the GOAT conversation. The goal is really just to discuss how things were built around LeBron James, because his career is fascinating from a player movement and player power perspective, but it will inevitably bring up some GOAT debates. And that's why I thought coaches would be a good place to start, because there is a thing that you see where people will say, hey, Jordan had Phil Jackson, LeBron played, most of his career for bad coaches. And I think that's an oversimplification. But with that said, let's get started. LeBron's first coach was Paul Silas. Now, Paul was a defensive forward in the NBA for a good number of years. He came off the bench for championships. I want you to think about kind of like the modern version that we have of Al Horford. And Cleveland chose him over Jeff Van Gundy because they wanted someone to mentor LeBron, someone to teach him the ropes of the NBA. And that's all well and good in thought process, and there are some indications that he was a good mentor to LeBron. Unfortunately, he loses the locker room instantly. There's a lot of talk that he overly favored LeBron, an understandable move given the other players on the team, but it alienates some of the more veteran pieces. Cleveland has to make a few trades, and they salvage these trades later on, but they trade away good pieces for less good pieces, and they lose trades because guys were not fitting with LeBron. And a big part of that was this alienation. And I think because of that, we can call Paul Silas a bad coach. After Silas's 1.5 years, James gets to play about 20 games for Brendan Malone, Mike Malone's father. Brendan is like a career assistant who gets 2 short head coaching stints, both as interims. He did not want to be a head coach. I'm not going to criticize him. After Brendan Malone, we get Mike Brown. If you're following the NBA right now, you know Mike Brown just got fired from the Kings, but I want to take you back to what it looked like hiring him back in 2005. Brown had gotten a championship ring as a member of the 03 Spurs staff, moves on from there to being Rick Carlisle's defensive guy for the Indiana Pacers. That team makes the Eastern Conference Finals. By all means, a lot of teams wanted to hire Mike Brown. And after 2 seasons, Brown has done what most teams would want him to do. He has molded the roster together, he has developed a defense, top 3 defense in the league, and the 07 Cavs make the finals. Now, we can also give a lot of that credit to LeBron James. I think most people would and do. But there's enough positive from Mike Brown that we can't just call him a trash coach. He's about an average NBA coach. You're always going to have those coaches that you hire that last couple of years and are out of the league. He's done better than that. Would I much rather have him as an assistant? Absolutely. He's certainly not Phil Jackson. He's certainly not Greg Popovich, but he's fine. Now here's where we get to a good coach. LeBron moves to Miami and gets to play for Eric Spoelstra. Now, Spo is not the coach that we know him to be today. It does take him a little bit of time to grow in his role, and that's something you should expect from any coach. Phil Jackson was not 10 rings Phil Jackson the day that he moved over to the head coach seat. Greg Popovich has talked about how he was likely going to be fired if Tim Duncan didn't pan out. But I would say Spo quickly develops, and by LeBron's second season with the Heat, Spo is showing why he is one of the best coaches in the league. And since then, Spo has been recognized as one of the best coaches in NBA history. He has done amazing work in the post-LeBron era, first with a team of scrubs making the playoffs with them, and then later coaching the Jimmy Butler's teams to 2 finals, which really, how many teams make 2 finals without a top 5 player? Thinking back in NBA history, it's not common that you have guys who are not in MVP conversations leading teams to finals, and a lot of that is Spo's coaching. And this is where I think the critiques of LeBron's coaching tree kind of fall apart, because LeBron chose to leave Spo. Now, he does this because Miami has a bad roster, not because Spo is a bad coach. So if you are a LeBron fan and you say, hey, LeBron didn't have good coaches, you got to take a lot of that up with LeBron, because here he's playing for a good coach, and he chooses to leave. And he chooses to go to Cleveland, who has just hired David Blatt. And this is the second big problem that I get into when you talk about LeBron having played for bad coaches. When he moves teams, he's going to a lot of teams that don't have great coaches. That increases LeBron's coach count because he gets there and he wants that guy fired. And Cleveland doesn't even wait an offseason. They bring in Ty Lue to be the associate head coach. And basically, LeBron only listens to Lue, Blatt's a patsy. It's not a good fit. And after 1 season, Lue takes over as the head coach. Now, mileage on Lue may vary, but in my book, Lue is an excellent coach. Over the last 4 years, as a team, the Clippers have underachieved due to injury. But if you take away, or if you say, hey, Kawhi's only going to play 11 games in Lue's first playoff run, and Lue's still going to get the team to the Western Conference Finals, that's overachieving. If you say Kawhi is going to miss an entire season, Paul George is going to get 30 games in, and that team's going to be above 500, that's overachieving. It's not Phil Jackson level, it's not Greg Popovich level, but it is probably top 5 of the modern era level. So once again, Here you have LeBron James playing for a good coach, and once again, here you have LeBron James leaving a good coach to play for Luke Walton. Now, I love Luke Walton. He will always have a special place in my Lakerland heart, but I think we know he's not that great of a coach, or at least wasn't in this situation. And so pretty quickly, we get Frank Vogel. And once again, I think Frank Vogel is an average coach. He has some high spots, he has some low spots. He's probably a little bit worse than Mike Brown in general. Definitely rubs players the wrong way with some of his militant attitude, but successful enough to coach the team to an NBA championship. And unsuccessful enough to get fired for Darvin Ham. Ham, by many accounts, was a pretty solid X's and O's guy, a decent motivator, but completely loses the locker room in one season and has the more veteran players kind of making fun of him rather quickly. Enough to say bad coach. And now he's got JJ Redick, who, first year JJ Redick, I don't want to be overly critical, has not impressed me a ton. Has he on offense been tactically better than Darvin Ham? Absolutely. It's great to see them running some better sets. But let's give him a little bit of time to try to figure this out. Where that kind of leaves us is LeBron ends up playing for 4 bad coaches. Paul Silas, Luke Walton, David Blatt, and Darvin Ham. 2 average coaches, Mike Brown and Frank Vogel. 1 good coach in Ty Lue, and 1 great coach in Eric Spoelstra. But he could have cut off half of this coaching list by just staying in Miami. Or he could have cut off half of it again by just staying in Cleveland. A good number of the bad coaches in LeBron's history are LeBron's own decision to go play for those franchises that have already employed these coaches.